Hello and welcome to another episode of Protest and Promise. My name is Lisa Salazar and I'm the General Manager of the Youth Development Department here in the city of Los Angeles. Every month we engage with members of the Olivia E. Mitchell LA City Youth Council who are here with us along with a variety of guests representing the public and the private sector to discuss issues of importance to young people living in our city. Allow me to introduce members of our Youth Council. Joining us virtually today, we have Asha. Want to say hello, Asha?
Hi.
We're joined by Diana. Diana, introduce yourself and tell us your council district.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Vicente. I currently represent Council District 14. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Asha, I'm sorry I didn't ask you the same thing. What council district do you represent?
CD10.
CD10, all right. We're also here with Kamari. You want to say hello, Kamari?
Hello, I'm Kimari Love. I'm representing Council District 9.
All right, CD9. And last but not least, Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie, and I represent Council District 13.
All right, thank you all for being here today. We're also joined by a special guest all the way down from Sacramento,
Yes.
Michael Lemus with the California Student Aid Commission, who is here with us today to talk with us and help us understand this exciting new all in for college, all in for student aid through the California Commission. So Michael, if you could maybe help us understand a little bit about what the California Student Aid Commission does.
Absolutely.
And then tell us about this exciting new campaign.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, for the invitation. It's nice to be back where I grew up and just spent a lot of time here in Los Angeles, so it's always very excited to return. So what I do at the California Student Aid Commission, so we can start off with that, we're the largest statewide financial aid administrator in the country, and that's really, really big deal for us in terms of the amount of financial aid that we actually give to our students across California. What I do, I'm actually the outreach and marketing manager, and so a big part of what I do is making sure that we do outreach to students, families, educators, you name it, so that folks know about the financial aid opportunities available to them. The other big part of it, as I said, outreach and marketing is the marketing aspect of it. So of course, social media, the website, and all of the things that go in terms of just making sure that people are aware of the financial aid opportunities is a big part of what I do, but I'm excited to be here.
Great, great, great. So tell us about the All In campaign. What's new? I understand this is a campaign that is going to make it easier for high school students to apply for financial aid. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So it's basically a new law. And so what it actually does is that it makes the schools, it's actually a verification process. So the schools are now required to verify that high school seniors across California, which is a large population of students, but that they actually apply for financial aid. And so here in California, we have two applications. That's either the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application for undocumented students. And so the campaign itself is called All In for FAFSA / California DREAM Act because it's meant to encompass both of those applications, but really make it easier, to your point, and provide an opportunity to thousands more students across the board. We're actually only one of 7 states across the entire country that even has this as an actual law. So we're excited about it. It's a large thing to take on, but it really will be a game changer. And in other states, it actually has increased the financial aid application completion rate significantly. So we're hoping to see that here in California as well.
Wow, that does sound like a game changer, because I think sometimes, young people, they have it in their minds that they want to go to college, but then right away they think like, how am I going to pay for it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then they talk to their parents and they're like, I don't know how we're going to pay for that. And then the idea of having to figure out how to fill out financial aid forms, can be intimidating.
Overwhelming, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So maybe a lot of people don't even attempt it.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, with this new law, we're going to we're going to actually facilitate
Yes,
the process to create opportunities for all high school students
absolutely.
to complete the FAFSA, maybe starting in the classroom, maybe starting in
Yes.
community-based organizations, but some strategy that says like, like we're just going to help you fill it out. You could decide whether or not you're going to go to college or
Right.
not, but let's see what happens and let's see what kind of financial aid package results from you applying, because
Exactly,
that's the
yes.
first thing is just filling out the application, but I know it can be very intimidating.
Thankfully, and this is going to be a big part of the All In campaign, is that there are so many people out there to assist, whether it's your high school counselor, a financial aid officer at a college or university, community-based organizations. The reason why we call the campaign the All In campaign is because we want everyone to be part of the conversation,
Right.
even people that maybe have never traditionally been part of the financial aid conversation. It's our goal to bring all sorts of people together to have these conversations and hopefully simplify the process for these students, because you're right, those applications sometimes can be overwhelming. You have to then explain it to your parents if they, for example, speak another language,
Right.
for example. That's a big part of facilitating that process. So it's a lot, but the whole point of this is that we expand access. Now, the actual law itself, while it does have the actual schools verifying that process, students can technically formally opt out.
Okay.
We're not encouraging that.
Right.
However, they do have that option if, for example, they're going to the military. So if there's an actual viable option as to why they're going to not pursue financial aid or college, they can formally opt out. However, what we say is expand your options.
Yeah.
Even if you are looking at the military or if you're looking at another option, have different options, different schools that you can go to. Ultimately, it's the student's choice, but we just want to make sure that they at least have the resources available to them, and that's really what comes down to in this campaign.
Great, great. So getting the word out
Yes.
that this new law is in place, helping students understand what it is and what it isn't.
Yes.
Is just key. And I know our youth council members have a lot of questions and can really be an integral part of getting the word out to help young people across the city understand what this is about. So let's jump into the questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So does anybody want to jump in with the first? All right, Charlie, you have a question for Michael.
Yeah. So growing up in a Latino community, an immigrant community, undocumented students, including DACA students, do not qualify for federal student aid. Can you discuss financial aid options for undocumented and DACA students?
Yes. Well, first off, I just want to say that I appreciate you bringing up the FAFSA and the California DREAM Act application, because we are a state that actually does offer financial aid for undocumented students with DACA and without DACA. So that's really important to go ahead and note right off the bat. But I do appreciate you bringing that up, because a lot of the times people actually only talk about the FAFSA. And we actually are very fortunate here to live in a state that has a lot of support for undocumented students. And to your point, there is the California DREAM Act application. We highly encourage students to, one, know that it exists, but two, to apply, because there's actually a lot of financial aid that undocumented students can actually get here in California. It's different state by state, but here in California, they could, for example, qualify for state aid. And whether you go to a CSU, a UC, community college, a trade tech school, there's still financial aid available across the board. And undocumented students can still qualify for what we have as a middle class scholarship. We have state university grants at the schools. There's a lot of opportunities. And so what we don't want is families out there that either are mixed status families or undocumented to count themselves out.
Very good. No, thank you for sharing that. That's
Absolutely.
really important. Why don't we go to Asha? Asha, you have a question for Michael?
In what ways can college become more accessible to people of all socioeconomic statuses?
Yeah, great question. And it actually ties really well to what I came to talk about, which is this all-in campaign, because what we really want to go ahead and ensure is that students from all walks of life actually have an opportunity to go to college and access financial aid. So that's not just your, typical four-year bound student. It's not your typical just AP student. That can include our AP students, but it's also our alternative school students, our continuation school students. It really is bringing everyone into the conversation. And so in terms of how students can actually access this information, one, I know you all probably have social media, right? Or you have access to websites. We're really accessible, and that's something that's a priority of mine. I oversee our outreach and marketing unit, and so we want to make sure that if you're looking online, if you're looking on social media, if you're looking pretty much anywhere for financial aid resources, that they're readily accessible. As students, you also can be proactive in sharing that information with your peers. I think that's super helpful and important to help us out in making sure that the word gets out to the right people. But again, sometimes what we hear out there is like, oh, I have to have a 4.0 or I have to be a 3.5 student to access financial aid. When in fact, of course, we want to make sure that you get the best grades possible. But really, GPA is a part of the process, but it's not going to discount you. There are students that have, 2.0s, 2.5s. They're going to all different types of schools, and there's still financial aid available. So again, if you come across your peers or friends that are out there like, hey, I actually don't have the best grades, they still can qualify. And if they're ever wondering what the process looks like, I would say start off with our office because we can definitely assist you. And your high school counselors are also really great resources as well.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Asha, that we need to make sure that everyone knows about the College Promise program, right? So College Promise allows for 2 years of free tuition for every full-time, first-time student in the state of California. So your tuition is taken care of if you're first-time, full-time at a community college. But it's also important to apply for financial aid to help you offset some of those other costs like books and housing and just everyday living. So, I would say more folks should take advantage of the College Promise because you can wipe out that tuition cost right off the bat for the first 2 years. And you can graduate with an AA degree, you can earn a workforce certificate, or you can transfer to a 4-year where your, student financial aid will play a bigger part in continuing with your education. So I think we're really fortunate to be in California and have, programs like the College Promise program and the All-In campaign.
Yeah, and if I could just quickly add to that, what we provide at our agency is something known as the Cal Grant. So if you do go to a community college, you can actually place that Cal Grant on hold and transfer it over when you're ready to go to a 4-year university. For some students also, they're going to want to go ahead and do a career trade tech program, and that's a perfect option as well. If you want to do 4-year community college, stick to a very specific trade, all we want is for you all to apply for financial aid so that you at least have options. And if you end up changing your mind, at least you applied for financial aid instead of thinking, well, I'm just going to go this route, not apply for financial aid, and then realize like, oh, I really should have.
Yeah. Great question. Thank you for that, Asha. Let's go to Kamari. Kamari, do you have a question for Michael?
Yes, I do. First, I would like to say thank you, Michael, for coming to meet with us and share this valuable information. And also thank you to the state of California for making sure that all students, especially those underrepresented students, can apply for financial aid. Because I remember my experience in high school, I've seen a lot of students who had a struggle on a day-to-day life. And because financial aid was another struggle, that seemed almost as if it was a mountain that could not be moved. They gave up on the process just because they were not able to step across that financial aid. And from my experience, financial aid was the barrier that almost prevented me from going to college. So thank you. I would like to know, how would you advise an independent college student to approach the application process?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for the kind words. I want to touch on that a bit more because the applications themselves can appear very overwhelming. One of the resources that we have at the agency level here at the California Student Aid Commission, and this is available statewide, are what are known as Cash for College workshops / webinars. So these happen across the board locally. So that may be at a school, it may be at a community organization, but we also have them online via Zoom. We will basically walk you through the entire application process and then open ourselves up as a resource if you need to call us, if you need to email us. We'll help you through the application, and that's not just for the students, it's for the families as well. And these are happening up and down our state of California in various locations as well as virtually as well. But to your point around the independent colleges and universities, so really the messaging that I brought up earlier applies to all these students, including those that go to private schools. There is financial aid available at private schools as well. It's about being strategic, and also when you get to any university or college, beyond the state and federal grants that are available, you can also get scholarships from the school, from organizations, from various places. And I would say, go to your financial aid office when you do, and some of you are actually already college students. You can ask them, hey, are there any additional scholarship opportunities out there? Oftentimes, they will have a full-on list, but there's also websites out there. I believe FastWeb is one of them, and there's a couple of others. But regardless if you're going to a private school, public school, whatever it is, making sure that you know where to start because there are a lot of resources. I didn't find out about some of the additional scholarship opportunities until midway through my college career. I wish I would have known because I didn't have all that information. And then I was able to get additional aid even when I went to grad school, which a lot of people think you can't get financial aid when you go to grad school. I was able to get some, and I was able to get financial aid at Cal Poly Pomona and Cal State Fullerton. And so there's a lot out there. You just got to ask. And if you don't know where to ask, start off with people like us.
I'm going to ask you because
Yeah,
I
ask me.
love school.
Yes.
I love school. I would go back to school.
Yes.
If I knew about financial aid
Yes.
for even an old person like me. So yeah, you're going to be my new best friend.
We're going to talk. We're going to chat.
Right on. Diana, I'm sure you have a question for Michael.
Of course. Thank you so much for having us again. And I love that. I'm all for education too. And I just heard that you are CSU raised. I'm from CSUN myself, finishing up my MBA. So we love that. In terms of endowments, I know that there are a lot of funds that universities have available.
Yeah.
When I served as student body president of Cal State Northridge, I actually started an endowment to help students pay for their books and other supplies. But could you tell us a little bit about those funds? How can students access them? And what are they?
Yeah.
Great question. And kudos to just starting that and for being a student body president. That's a big deal. But in terms of endowments, like you brought up, I mean, they could come from many different places, and oftentimes they're very large amounts of money. I'm actually going to say something very similar to my previous answer, which is in terms of figuring out whether or not these things even exist, where they're at, starting off, because sometimes these endowments are tied to like a specific college within a university, right? Or a specific department, or it may be tied to a specific initiative. Oftentimes, these financial aid offices at the schools are some of the first people to find out when a piece of funding is available to students. And what they oftentimes will do is centralize a list. Sometimes it's online. I would say at this point, especially going through the pandemic, a lot of stuff is going to be online. But really, don't be afraid to also just go into a financial aid office. I know sometimes it's like, oh, like, what is it going to be like? But like any other space, you know, those folks, including folks like myself, our job is to help you. Like at the end of the day, that is our job, is to make sure that you're aware of this. So whether it's an endowment, a scholarship, or a grant, starting off with the folks that do financial aid, I think is going to be very helpful. The other thing is your department. So each of you will either have a major in the future or are currently in a place where you have a major or a department. There are coordinators, oftentimes there's department chairs, faculty. You can go ahead and ask them, like, is there any additional funding opportunities? Sometimes there's student-run councils that will give scholarships. Like in grad school, I was able to work with our education council. They gave me $500 just to go to a conference because I had applied and I was like, hey, I'm going to present. This is a good thing for the university as well. They're like, here's $500. But I went like looking around, and you kind of got to, you know, scout your resources. We're very aware of like what's available at the state and federal level. There's a lot of like hidden gems out there that if you just ask the right people and, you know, make sure that you're resourceful. And I know you all, especially in a technology era, you share all the things. You have groups and chats and all that stuff. I'm sure there's many resources online as well, just via social media probably.
Wow. Where were you when I was doing my undergrad? You know, you were talking, I was thinking, I only went to my financial aid office
Most
like maybe
people, yeah.
once or twice a year just to like
that was me too, up until later on.
Just to pick up a check. I mean, like how smart to just like go in there, get to know them. You know, I mean, they have all the information.
Yeah.
You know, take them out for coffee, find out what's going on. That's great. Thank you for asking that question. So I think we have time for another round of questions. Who has another question for Michael? All right, Charlie. And then Asha.
So I have a two-questioner, if that's fine.
Yeah.
So another challenge students from mixed status families face are parents that have not filed taxes before or their tax records. So what can they do in this situation?
That's a good question. Yeah. Oh, and then your second question.
Yeah, and then on top of that, there is another AB 540 status. So how could undocumented students apply for that? And could you explain what an AB 540 status is?
Yeah. So AB 540 is basically what allows a student to qualify for state aid. And so that is tied to the California DREAM Act application, for example. And so there's a couple of different ways that you can qualify. So that could be graduating from a California high school. It could also be, for example, if someone didn't actually, like, let's say they only had a limited amount of time at that high school. There's also a way to combine years from different schools, as long as it's within California, to qualify for what's known as AB 540 status. Now, there is something, and I won't complicate it too much, so what I will say is that you can also go to our website. We're at csac.ca.gov. There's a whole section that explains what that AB 540 status is, how you qualify for it. But long story short, basically the way that students qualify is by having a certain amount of years here in California, and so it's tied to residency in that sense. But most students, or a lot of students, will qualify by graduating from a California high school, even if they were in a different area prior. So that's a big part. But to your point around your first question, which is related in a sense, the mixed status families. So that's really, really important as well, because the financial aid application, and this can be seen on the application, finances are, of course, looked at, household size, all of those things. And so what they're looking at is each individual case. What we hear sometimes is like, oh, my friend got this or didn't get this, so I'm not going to do it. And it's like, please don't go by that, because everything's very much based on a case-by-case basis. For mixed status families, there's an income, or really for anyone, there's an income and assets bracket. And so for students, they can actually go to our website, see how much they can make within a household size. But for those mixed status families, for example, if they have undocumented parents, but they were born here, they can still apply for financial aid. There are sections there that if that family made less than what the threshold is on the website, they actually don't even need to put in certain information. Now, when they do, it's going to alert them that that's still necessary. If this gets complicated, because again, with the numbers, it does get really complex, I would say go to our website. And second, I would say make sure that when you're reading through the application, this includes your family as well, that they're really taking note of those little prompts that come up, sometimes those little asterisk symbols, because it will tell you that. Now, if you need information, again, I think the big thing is reach out to your resources. We can always help you out too. We have a student support line and also an email support line as well.
So, I mean, all in really does mean all in.
Yes.
Mixed status families.
Absolutely.
Newcomers.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, all in means all in.
Yes.
And hopefully at the end, we'll put your website up
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
the screen. Great. Thank you for that question, Charlie. Asha, you had your hand up.
Yes. Are there any resources for paying off college debt?
Good question. I'm myself waiting to see if my student loans are going to be forgiven, so I understand. But in that sense, in terms of paying things off, I would say if we reverse it a bit, starting off from the point where you do apply for financial aid, really read through the fine print of things, because here's me. I was like, I'm going to take out a student loan so that I can go ahead and live where my friends live. And that was a couple $1,000s that I'm still paying down like 10 years later. Yeah. Now, I did use, of course, some of it for tuition for grad school and things like that. But there are certain decisions that, and looking back, I'm like, probably should have gone about that a little bit differently. But I will say, when you're looking at anything, and that goes if you're going to accept a credit card, a loan, a grant, make sure that you read through the fine print in terms of resources to pay things back. Like, for example, loans. There's a lot, including at the federal level, some of which we're looking at as well and looking at what that means for our students. But I'd say really understanding what those rates are for grants. This is really important. Grants never have to be paid back. So if you get a grant, you do not have to pay that back. If there's a loan, there's a difference between unsubsidized and subsidized loan. And that all just applies to interest. So look at what that is. If you have anything that you're like, I don't really understand what that is, your financial aid officers at your schools, they will know what that information is as well. But yes, there are resources. So for example, here in the state of California, and even federal programs, there is like the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program. So that's for folks that work in state service, teachers, I believe doctors, people that are in service-oriented fields that can actually apply to get their loans forgiven. So there's a lot of information out there. And again, I think sometimes what happens is just that it's an overload of information. So try to do it in bite sizes. So if it's on forgiveness or, lowering the debt, look in specific areas, because there's many organizations that literally that's all they do is debt forgiveness. So that way it doesn't become so overwhelming. But yes, there are many resources.
Many resources, a lot of information. Maybe this is something the Youth Council can dig into a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're working on a financial literacy kind of set of curriculum.
Yeah.
Maybe we could focus one just on student loans and strategies on how to pay those off.
Yeah.
So thank you for that question, Asha. Thank you so much. Do we have another question, Diana?
Yes, and thank you. And we would definitely love to utilize our social media and any other forms that we can to get information out. I want to ask a little bit of a conversation starter. You know, a lot of times students, when they're applying to this, they're like, why is this so expensive? Why isn't education free? So why isn't education free? How does that work? And where are we at today with it?
That's a really good question. And it's a complex answer too, but what I will say in terms of trying my best to simplify it is that like any other place, right, you need to pay people to have something function. And so at schools and universities, and prior to actually working for state government, my background's actually in higher education. So my grad program was in higher ed. So I worked with college students for 7 years before I even went to state government. And I realized, as someone that worked at a university, really there's funding that is needed to pay all those people, whether it's your advisors, your financial aid officers, the folks that work, to make sure that there's food on the table for the students at the commons. It's a system. And of course, we want to make it more accessible and easier for students to pay. But ultimately, yes, it's still a system that requires actual people to work and provide services. And so that's the simplest way of putting it. However, there are conversations, and you actually brought this up earlier, there are places where you can fully get tuition covered. And so don't count out the community colleges, don't count out those grants, because ultimately if you want to just stay at a community college, that's fine. But if you want to transfer to a 4-year, if you want to save some money, there's so many different options out there. But that's a big one. Like, why isn't college free? Like, it's a big one, and I understand where it's coming from. But to that point, every system, including universities and colleges, higher ed is an ecosystem within itself in that sense.
Yeah. One day, free housing, free education. Kamari, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. I know that sometimes loans can seem so intimidating. So what can college students do to ensure that they're getting the maximum of their grants, maximizing all the grants that are available to them? For example, I know that when I went to take a class at the community college, CSAC, they offered the Chaffee grant. I think that's
yes.
But it's like, how do we ensure that students know that these type of grants are available?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, well, first off, thank you for bringing up the Chafee grant. So for folks that don't know about this, CSAC does offer the Chafee grant, which is actually a grant for foster youth specifically. Okay. And so there are a lot of different grants, and social media was just brought up. Something that we're working on, and this is something that I get the privilege of, overseeing this unit, is how to do a better job at making sure that information is digestible. Because there's a lot out there, even us as staff, we're just like, okay, we just got these new grants and the administration gave us these new programs, which is really great, right? That means we have support. But as we get things added, that means more information that needs to be digested from you all at the audience level. And so what we could do a better job at, which we are actually already working on right now, is creating things and really, honestly, getting modern with the times and meeting you all where you're at. So that means making TikToks where it's like short snippets of information related to each grant. Flyers that are not heavy on text, and making sure that we get the bullet points and then route you all to a website where you can get more information. But also making sure that you all are actually in these videos and represented across the board, because we can assume at our staff level that you are going to understand this, but we need to be asking you all, which is why we're also doing things like focus groups. This is a great opportunity because I get to hear from you all on what you experience. That's what we need to do, including us as a state agency. We need to make sure that we bring you into the conversation and don't just assume that you all are just going to get it, because clearly there's a lot of students out there that are still confused, and our job is to go ahead and simplify it.
Wow, great question. Thank you for that. We are all out of time.
Wow.
Education is a fundamental need of young people across the city of Los Angeles.
Yes.
And I think what we learned here today is that the all-in campaign is the way to go, that all students should take advantage of this opportunity to complete the FAFSA and apply for financial aid, because you never know which you'll be eligible for. And that there's lots of people out there in schools, community-based organizations, through youth leadership groups that are there to help young people apply. So I want to thank our youth council members for their just great questions. I know we only scratched the surface. Thank you to Asha, Charlie, Kamari, and Diana. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to Michael Lemus from the California Student Aid Commission. Great conversation. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you all.
I'm Lisa Salazar, General Manager of the Los Angeles Youth Development Department, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Protest and Promise.